Hello, I am Carla Clark, Regional Director of Sales with Era Living, hosting on behalf of the Gardens at Town Square. Before we start today's presentation, I would like to share a little bit about our beautiful retirement community with you. The Gardens at Town Square is a retirement community where sophistication meets style. We are a premier retirement living community in downtown Bellevue, and residents who live here experience a warm and vibrant lifestyle, a vast array of amenities, elegant dining with an in-house chef, rich programming, and compassionate care. Residents can live here independently or with assisted living services, or within our secured memory care in the Terrace neighborhood. If you are interested in learning more, our community relations team would be happy to answer any questions you have or take you on a personalized tour of our community. We can be reached at 425-448-3615. And now for our main event. We are honored to host Mayor Lynn Robinson, who will be presenting on the development in Bellevue. Mayor Lynn Robinson joined the City Council in 2014, and she has a long history of civic involvement. She is a champion for startups and small business, and has encouraged startup and equity crowdfunding workshops in City Hall. Her colleagues voted her deputy mayor in January 2018, and mayor in January 2020, and again in January 2022. Lynn also advocates for the environment, parks and open spaces, human services, and affordable housing in Bellevue. She proposed a property tax exemption adopted by the council for multifamily complexes that include affordable housing. And a fun fact we recently learned is that Mayor Lynn Robinson has a long-standing relationship and worked with many people at the Gardens at Town Square. Please help me in welcome Mayor Lynn Robinson.
Well, thank you so much, Carla. It's really a pleasure to be here. As Carla said, I spent a lot of years working at the Gardens at Town Square in my capacity as a physical therapist. And so you're all probably too young to have worked with me, but I saw people individually, and I also taught a group exercise class in the weight room for 2 years, and I really enjoyed that, and I kind of miss doing it. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen if I can. Can you see that? Okay, I can't hear you, but I saw you nod your head, Carla, so.
Yes, we can see it.
I also wanted to tell you that, when COVID happened, it's really, when we first heard about COVID, I got pulled into an emergency meeting at City Hall on a Saturday morning, and we had the chief of police, the fire chief, the city manager, our emergency response director, and me all sitting in the room, and we were all going to have there was going to be an announcement from the governor, and nobody knew what it was going to be, but that it was a highly infectious disease that had been discovered. And my first thought were our older adult residents in Bellevue in group living. And I said, well, we need to call all the facilities right now, including the Gardens at Town Square, and let them know to go into like a flu protocol, because I know that your Gardens at Town Square has a protocol when the flu gets really bad, that everybody has to mask and wash their hands, and you're very careful about who you let in and out. And I was the only woman in the room. I don't know if that had anything to do with anything, but I got voted down and said that was an overreaction. And I said, all it takes is one contaminated person to come in and the whole place is going to be exposed. And they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. So we all sat down for the conference with the governor and turned on the TV. And then they told us what was happening in Kirkland at the senior living place. And everybody looked at me and looked very sheepish. But I want you to know, I made a phone call that day before the governor, right after the governor spoke, or I think it was actually before, to the Gardens at Town Square, and alerted them that they maybe want to go into a full flu protocol. And I believe you did. You were one of the first people to react and protect your residents as best you could. And you did a really, really good job. And I'm so proud of the work that ERA does for their clients. And I'm happy for you to be living in such a great place. So I'm here today to talk to you about all the development and the growth happening in Bellevue. I'm sure you've noticed a little bit so far, some of the change that is happening. But you know, people think we're being surprised by this, and we're not. We planned for this growth. When we doubled our downtown density, it was with the hopes that we would get this kind of interest in our city. We're still only 70% built out in downtown Bellevue. There's still a lot of room to grow. And I want to talk to you about some of the growth that is happening right now, what's in the pipeline, and how we are preparing for the impacts of that growth. So right now, we are reviewing our comprehensive plan. Bellevue's comprehensive plan is a guide for growth. And the council is having a retreat next month, and we're going to be talking about kind of our value system for growth. We do a 30-year plan for the future, but the comp plan is a 20-year plan for the future. And the exciting thing is that the community gets to get involved. So one of the things that we were really proud about in Bellevue is the high quality of life. And I think that that is foundationally the thing that is attracting all the interest in Bellevue and all the investment in Bellevue. People like to visit here, they like to live here, they like to work here, and they like to go to school here. And the schools, as you know, or maybe you don't know, our public school system ranks as one of the top in the country. And you know, that makes for good neighbors, people who all value their kids' education, and they all live in the same place, all have something in common regardless of where they come from. And so we have a very cohesive, diverse community that we're very proud of, and we want to keep nurturing that. So our planning process that we're going to go through with the comp plan is we seek to understand who we are today as a community, but also where we want to be in the next 20 years. So for the next 2 years until 2024, you will have opportunities to weigh in and on the planning process. So updates to the comp plan process will be available at this website, if you can write that down, and you can check in and check the progress, and you can get involved as well. So that's engagingbellevue.com. So as we look over the last decade, the development interest in Bellevue has been very strong since 2014, when I got on the council, just saying, and has continued through 2021 and into 2022, because when you look at the pipeline, we are still going strong. You can see in this picture, aerial view of light rail. It almost looks like we drew this in, but this is an actual photo of light rail going in, and most of the construction is completed. We're still working on some of the stations, finishing them up. But right now they're doing testing with the electronics, so the trains are actually running at night, which is exciting. And you're not hearing anything, are you? A lot of people thought this would just be so noisy, but it's not. So in 2020, during COVID, we had our first best year of permitting. And that was an amazing thing by our staff, that before COVID hit, we got permitting to be online. So you didn't have to be there in person. You could sit in your home and apply for a permit and answer all the questions and get that going. And we did that because we just did not have enough staff to handle all the permit requests. So we went online with our permitting, and then COVID hit and we had to shut City Hall down. If we had not been online with permitting, we would not have been able to permit anything for 2 years. and we would have had our worst 2 years, but instead we had our best 2 years. So 2020 was our first best year, 2021 was our second best year, and 2022 is looking to be our third best year. It's pretty remarkable how much permitting we've done. So we've exceeded $1.6 billion of value of construction projects permitted by the city. These include mixed-use office projects in downtown in the Spring District and residential projects in downtown, the Spring District, and Bellevue. And in case you're concerned that we're going to run out of space, we still have Willburton, Eastgate, Factoria, and the rest of Bellevue to rezone and make really wonderful urban villages out of. I'm actually hoping that we can make somewhat of an eco district out of Willburton, where we can build sustainably and do some kind of design competition to encourage real interesting sustainable development that will make that just a very unique part of Bellevue. And if you've been to the Spring District, or if you haven't actually, Carla, you should take everybody on a field trip to the Spring District, because this is an example for the entire nation on how to do development right. We put in the infrastructure in advance of the development. We got the road work in, we got the utilities in, and then the Spring District started to emerge. And we were able to do that advanced planning and development with what's known as a TIFIA grant, or TIFIA loan, excuse me. That's a federal loan, very, very low interest, very long-term payback, where you kind of gamble on the potential revenues that are going to be brought in due to the success of your development. So the Spring District was somewhat of a no-brainer, with light rail going right through there and the stations right next door to what was going to be developed. We knew that would be a very popular area and would bring in enough revenue to justify this loan. So we got a $100 million loan, very low interest, very long period of time to pay it back. And when the interest rates went down lower, we refinanced it. So it's even better deal. And it's definitely working out for us. We have more than enough revenue to be making our payments back because of all the revenue being generated by the development in the Spring District. But that very few cities have that opportunity to put infrastructure in advance. Usually they do the development, they see it gets really busy, it gets really crowded, and they go back in and redo all the roads. So that did not happen there. And I hope that we are able to do that in our other developments as well, with especially with Willburton. So I wanted to give you a few examples of some projects that are being developed right now. On the left, you see Bellevue 600. That is an office building being developed at Northeast 6th and 110th. Northeast 6th is going to figure prominently in another part of my discussion, so remember that. So that's a key location. If you see at the bottom of that building, there's a little low covered area. That's a community asset. That's a open plaza. This building is being built, I believe, by Amazon. It's definitely for Amazon, and it may be being built by Vulcan, I can't remember, but it's for Amazon. And everything that every building that's being built right now has to have community amenities to make life better for the people around it. And that, you know how Amazon did those spheres in downtown Seattle, which were beautiful, but they're not really open to the public. This is open to the public. Anybody and everybody can go in there and get shelter from the rain or the cold, or enjoy a cup of coffee any day while they enjoy what's going to be going on Northeast 6th, which I'll talk about later. The building in the middle is Bellevue Plaza. That's on 106th Avenue Northeast between 2nd Street and Main Street. That is a big building, and that's going to be mixed use office. And then the one on the right is Avenue Bellevue, which is mixed use residential on the corner of Northeast 8th and Bellevue Way, where that little strip mall used to be. And I think this developer brags that he is going to have the highest rents ever charged in this area with that building. I don't think that's something to brag about myself, but he's very pleased with himself, obviously. And it's a great, beautiful building for those who can afford it, I guess. But it's going to be not only beautiful from the inside, but beautiful to look at from the outside, which I really appreciate. I think that everything that's built from in Bellevue that replaces, you know, something that's not the most attractive thing should be very visually pleasing and become part of the view of the people looking at it. We have a building called the 8 going in on Northeast 8th and 108th, and that's going to be office. We have the Broadstone Bellevue Gateway, which is a residential project on Main Street that includes 402 residential units, and I'm proud to tell you it's going to have 81 affordable units in it. We have Summerhill, which is a multifamily residential in Belred, adjacent to the Spring District Light Rail Station, that includes 397 residential units, 81 of which are affordable. And then on Northup Way, we're doing a residential project in Belred. There are 47 current major projects in downtown. 14 of those are under construction. The rest are in various stages of development. And there are 27 current major projects in Belred, 9 under construction, 18 in other stages of development. And then we have a pipeline. So there's a lot of exciting things happening in Bellevue. So we did plan for this growth, but what we didn't plan for is one company to come in and be such a huge part of that growth. We thought that we would get this much growth, just not this quickly. So it's happening faster than we anticipated. But the growth itself is not any bigger than what we planned for. But we've been working really hard. The staff has been working very, very hard to keep pace with the growth, make sure the growth is happening in a way that we want it to happen, and including the things that we want it to include. And that happens with codes and policies, managing the development of Bellevue. So some examples of that is the downtown livability that we passed in 2019, where we said we were going to increase density in downtown. But when we did it, every building would have to put in amenities that actually benefited the public. So you're going to see far more covered walkways, sidewalks than we've had in the past. And you're going to see urban pathways where people will be able to cut through lobbies to go diagonally across a large block and be sheltered. I live in downtown, and I live right by the downtown park. And I can walk across the park into the parking lot of Bell Square. I can go through the mall, cross a sky bridge to Lincoln, through Lincoln, cross a sky bridge to Bellevue Place, and pop out on 12th and 104th, and I'm completely sheltered the entire time. You may also know that there's underground driving that's almost as big as that, not quite. But so we're looking to do more of that in our other buildings. And Kemper Freeman did a very good job of showing us how that can be done. We've also are looking at, we always called it the look back, but now we call it the look ahead of Belred. So we're going to re-examine Belred outside of the Spring District and see how we can maintain some of the things that we did in the Spring District and continue them through the entire Belred. That's going to be a really exciting development in the Belred because there are 2 light rail stations there. You're not tearing down anything cute like Kelsey Creek. This is all old industrial areas, and these industrial developments long ago covered up all the streams that are in Belred. Belred is full of streams, and so part of what the developers have to do is not only daylight all those streams, but create what we call parklets, little parks that along the creek where people can walk and sit and rest. And I love the idea of being able to traverse from one parklet to another through the Spring District. For the families who are living in multifamily housing there, don't have their own yard, I think this is a real benefit to the families, to the kids. And then we did the East Main, all the land use for that. That took so much longer than it had to do, but we did really good work. We came up with some unique concepts. One thing that I love, we call it a deed in lieu. So we require that developers put in affordable housing, but they don't always do it the way we want to. And sometimes it's just the bare minimum. So we give them the option now of not paying money to avoid putting in affordable housing, but actually deeding a piece of their property to a nonprofit that will develop affordable housing. So instead of getting 10%, maybe 10 out of 100 units of slightly affordable, we could get 100 units much more affordable, so that, you know, there's so many people that we like and that we work with and that we spend the day with that aren't here at night or on the weekends because they can't afford to live here. And a lot of them are your grandkids. So we want to make sure that we have the full spectrum of housing prices in Bellevue. And we've been working hard to make sure we get that. And then we're also going to be looking, as I said, at Willburton. So it's possible and probable, actually, in the next 25 years that Bellevue will become the third largest employment center in the Pacific Northwest, behind Seattle and Vancouver. And so I think we're already the third largest in Washington state. So that's a lot of people coming in every day and going out, and that's where your traffic comes from. Right now, only 10%, well, I should say pre-COVID, only 10% of people who worked in Bellevue lived in Bellevue. So if we can increase that to 50%, that's going to be a good change. And that means the people who are all here during the day will be able to be here on the weekends and at night and be part of our community and not have to drive into work every day. So that'll take a lot of pressure off our roads. Okay, but you know, the challenge with all this growth, of course, is that we want to maintain all the things that make it a place where you want to be. So we don't want to lose the high quality of life that we have here. We don't want to lose our public safety, our great percentage of parks per capita, and our high education system. So those, you know, we're very sensitive about what we're doing and making sure that we don't lose what attracted you all here to be in the first place. So the things that are attracting all our employers is that we have I think the number one is our workforce. We have what's called a mature workforce. So because Bellevue attracts so many families because of the school system, we have that middle-aged employees, and that's super desirable. You know, it's funny how you can have lots of, and I'm talking about my own kids here, maybe your grandkids, but you can have people with a lot of coding talent, but if they can't function in a group or at a meeting, they are not quite as desirable as the older people who are, you know, make great mentors and good leaders and can maintain a decorum at the meetings. So the workforce is very attracts our employers, and I think just being a place where employees want to be. The high public safety, the schools, as I said, also the multimodal transportation. That's a big thing. There's not a single tech company that wants to come to Bellevue that doesn't ask what the multimodal transportation options are. So multimodal is just multiple modes of transportation. So yes, can you drive? Can you park? But could you safely ride your bike? Could you safely walk? And Bellevue has been doing a very good job of not just putting in bike lanes, but putting in protected bike lanes. And when REI was making the Bell Red their headquarters. Now they changed and Facebook took their place, or Meta. But REI and Facebook really wanted to activate the railroad tracks, which is called the East Trail with a capital T, and convert that into a ped bike route. Well, what could be safer than an old railroad track that cuts north-south through all these areas and not that much interaction with cars? And they both contributed a lot of money toward completing this ped bike path. The biggest costs are the Willburton Railroad trestle, making that safe and usable, crossing over 405 with a lid, crossing over I-90. There's a little trestle bridge that needs to be renewed, crossing over 8th Street with a bridge that's connected to light rail. Those are, and creating access with a 2-story grade from the Spring District down to the East Trail. So those are things that cost a lot of money, but the good news is we got it because we got federal, state, county, and private dollars from the companies to pay for all of that. So in 2024, that entire route through Bellevue will be completed, and it will ultimately go all the way from Renton through Bellevue to Kirkland to Redmond, Woodinville up to Snohomish. So those are the kinds of things that really attract young workers, and the thought that they could ride their bike to work, or they could take a lunch break and get some exercise out in the air, open air like that. The other thing that's exciting is intersecting the East Trail. So East Trail goes north and south. Intersecting it east and west is the Mountains of Sound Greenway. So the Mountains of Sound Greenway goes from the Puget Sound through Bellevue, through Issaquah, all the way to Eatonville. And it goes through forests, it goes through an old railroad tunnel. I mean, it's going to be the most amazing pathway. It's partially completed, but that's going to allow people to travel north-south and intersect with the East Trail and go, east-west and intersect with the East Trail and go north-south. So that's a huge opportunity. Let's see. I feel like I'm talking so much, but I guess that's my job. Sorry. Oh, well, we have light rail coming in, as you know. That is ahead of schedule and under budget, believe it or not. We just hit everything right. And I'll tell you, if any of you remember Councilmember Kevin Wallace, he saved our city $60 million in contingency dollars. Light rail just really wanted to have contingency dollars from the city of Bellevue, whether they used them or not, in case things cost more than they had to. And he went in there and he got rid of that, and they never would have had to use that money. So I'm really proud of him for the work he did. He also worked very hard on the alignment. And so that will be opening in early 2023. We keep your fingers crossed. It looks like the state is going to pass a massive transportation package, which is going to bring a lot of money to the Bellevue region. We really need that. We keep telling them it's not like growth may happen. Growth is happening, and it's happening today. And we need to make those road improvements immediately. So one thing, I don't know if you know this, but we have what's called bus rapid transit that goes on 405, and it goes in the diamond lanes, and it really is a great way to get north and south from work. The problem is that some of the stations are on the left side of the freeway and some of them are on the right side. I think most of them are on the right side. So Totem Lake's a great example. You're in the diamond lane, you get off, dedicated exit to the station, you let people on and off, and you get back into the diamond lane. It takes all of 5 minutes. All the other stations, you're in the diamond lane, you have to hack your way through traffic, get over to the stop, let people off, let people on, get back through, and get back in the diamond lane. Now that's like a 10-15 minute trek. So this is going to really speed up the rapid bus transit that we envision having for people in Bellevue and in the entire region. It also includes money for the Mountains to Sound Greenway and the East Trail and completing that, and I-167 improvements as well. So that's going to be a very great thing. Keep your fingers crossed that it actually passes, but it's looking good. Bellevue is continually ranked as one of the best places to live in the country. When I got on the council, my goal was that if I was on the East Coast and I told people I was from Bellevue, they wouldn't think a mental hospital. I think that we have made our goal of being known nationally as an award-winning city for livability, for projects that we do, for our schools, for innovation, for our high public safety. We really rank in the top 10 of all those areas, regardless of your age. They do it by age group, and we rank high for all ages. So I'm very proud of the city. But I have to say, it's the people here, like you, who make our city the great place that it is. We have a very high education level, one of the highest in the state. We have this, I love this fact. During COVID in 2020, Bellevue issued more patents than any other city in the country. And we used to be, I think, third to the Silicon Valley, but we actually became #1. So that just kind of tells you about the people that make up our community here. But I know a lot of you who are at the gardens raised your families in Bellevue and worked in Bellevue, and some of you are there because your children work in Bellevue or live in Bellevue. And so we're very happy to have the population that the gardens attracts in Bellevue. Oops. So I want to talk to you about something that I am excited about in Bellevue's future, and it's called the Grand Connection. And this is going to be on Northeast 6th. Right now, parts of Northeast 6th are what we call a pedestrian promenade, and that was envisioned 20 years ago when people worked on a visioning of the future for Bellevue. But we've made that much bigger scale, and we now call it the Grand Connection. And it will be a dedicated ped bike route that will go from Maidenbower Bay all the way through downtown Park, past the Bellevue Art Museum, past PACCAR, along that little alleyway. It will cross the street and go up what is now the promenade. I don't know if you know it, but it is on Northeast 6th, but it's all stairs and ramps right now, all the way up to the transit center to Bellevue City Hall, which you can kind of see in the picture where it's blurry. I don't know if I can do a pointer. You see my little arrow? There's City Hall there, and this yellow is the Grand Connection. And then it will cross the freeway. And this whole thing right here is a potential for a lid park. That's going to be a ton of money. We don't have to have a lid park to do the Grand Connection, but it would be wonderful if anybody's been to Clyde Warren Park in Dallas and experienced that. And it would be just great for the environment too. It would be carbon capturing of the freeway below, and it would be a quiet park for our community. Then it would cross over to the train tracks, which is East Trail. So you're probably sitting there thinking, I'm never going to use this. I don't want to walk that far. But we also have this vision, if you can imagine, of autonomous vehicles that you can hail. So you could have somebody with you get on the cell phone and hail an autonomous vehicle to pick you up and take you safely east and west along this trail. So you can see the gardens where you are is right here. So all you got to do is get to here, and then you could travel all the way to the water and all the way over to where Home Depot is. So I think that's going to be a huge asset. It's going to connect to the East Trail, and the East Trail will connect to many of our communities so that people will be able to access downtown Bellevue in more of a park-like manner and avoid all the traffic. There'll be music, there'll be plants, there'll be art. It's going to be a lovely thing. And I don't know if we can pull this off, but I envision having our major companies adopt a section and kind of make it thematic, and for them to pay for the development of these areas. So I envision seeing protected outdoor workspaces, places that the employees can charge their phone or sit down and work on their laptop with a little structure over them so they're protected from the rain. I see little restaurants there, dining, outdoor dining, and music opportunities. So that's going to be really fun. That's not the only thing we're thinking about, but that is one of my most exciting ones. So that's about it. I hope that you've enjoyed this information and that you're inspired to get involved in the comp plan review. And maybe Carla, you can provide some documents that the city can provide you to your residents there so they can follow along. So that is the end of my presentation. And here's how you can reach me. You know where to find me.
That's wonderful, and we would love to gather that information and share it. This conversation and discussion has actually prompted quite a few questions. We have time for about 15 minutes of questions, so I'll start in the chat. But first of all, we did have somebody send a question prior, so I'm going to start off with a question from Barbara. One of her two questions was already answered, I believe. But regarding Park Road development at 201 Bellevue Way Northeast, between Northeast 2nd and Northeast 4th Streets, is this still in review with 21 stories and 142 dwellings and 277 parking places?
Okay, I have to think on my head. So between Northeast 2nd and Northeast 4th, oh, I know where that is. Yes, it is still under review. They're not asking to do anything more than what they're allowed, so it's not going to go before the council. So they're within the confines of the code, and so they just need to get permitted. But that's BOSA, and that's from Canada, and they did the building that is southeast of that, and that's a beautiful building that they developed. So should be a good build. Should be a very great place to live.
Thank you. I'll move on to the next question. What and where is the Spring District? Okay,
good question. So the Spring District, it kind of confuses me as well. You know, unless you were involved in the industry in Bellevue, you probably didn't go there very often. But the Bell Red goes just south of the Spring District when you head east. So you know that the hospitals and the medical centers are on 116th. As you head east on Bell Red, and that's the medical centers on your right, and you go past 116th, there's a new road called Spring Boulevard that's now on your left. You should drive down there and take a little tour because it's the first ped bike centric road that we've ever developed in Bellevue, where if you're riding your bike or walking, the sensors pick you up before a car and allow you to cross the street. You also have a separated ped bike path there. But Spring Boulevard goes right through the Spring District, and it goes right up to, it passes Safeway's old warehouse, and it goes right up to the Coca-Cola factory, and it stops there. And so the plan is to go beyond that and connect up to Northup eventually. So it's a kind of the Spring District is kind of diagonal just north of Bell Red.
Great, thank you. This next question comes from Dan and Bonnie. When is the Willburton commercial area going to be rezoned? I was on the CAC to start this over 4 years ago, and we have not heard much since then.
Okay, first of all, let me apologize for that because we're all frustrated. I don't know. We have to do things in order. And somehow the order is East Main, Willburton, and Bellevue. And somehow East Main took way longer than it needed to. And I have lots of reasons why I think that happened, none of them good. But the good news is we got through it. So Willburton is next. And I am always lobbying the city manager to hire more staff so we can do these things concurrently and not one after the other. But hiring staff, you have to pay people a lot of money. They can't live in our city otherwise, and people don't really want to work where they can't live. It's very hard to attract workers right now. There's a lot of cannibalism, or I should say stealing of workers from other cities. And so we have lost some of our employees as they've been promoted to higher positions in other cities. So we're struggling with staff right now, and that's the biggest slowdown. But the good news is you already did all the hard work with Willburton. We have a really good vision for what that's going to be. And we have a lot of lessons learned from East Main that we can transfer over to Willburton. So I'm really looking forward to jumping into that. We will do it after the council retreat, which is in the end of March. So I think in the third quarter of this year, we'll start Willburton. That's my hope.
Great, thank you. Does this question came from an email. Does the city of Bellevue have a limitation on the height of its buildings? From Carolyn.
Yes, we do. So depending on where in Bellevue you are, we have different codes. And I mean, the comp plan is part of that. So the downtown livability, we upped. Okay, so downtown, I don't know if you know this, but it's called a wedding cake zoning. And that was done 15 years ago, maybe even 20 years ago, where the tallest buildings are in the middle of the city, and then they go down to the edge. And the thing that's unique about Bellevue, the reason you don't see urban sprawl, is because like 18 years ago, the council in its wisdom, and I think this was run by our first female mayor, Nan Campbell, when this happened, they took a single family neighborhood and that had a couple of office buildings in it, and they drew a big square and they created a perimeter and said, this is going to be our downtown district. And we've stuck to that. We've never varied from it. And so 100th has always been our west boundary. Main Street is the south boundary. 405 is the east, and 12th is the north. And so you can see the buildings step up to the middle, and our tallest building will be where Young Louis Studios was. That's going to be our tallest building because it's the middle of the wedding cake, and it's also the highest part of downtown Bellevue. It's on top of a little hill. So yes, we limit it, and we limit in Bellevue. It's totally different. We will limit it in Willburton. We gave limits in East Main. Now, East Main is interesting because we said, well, you can have a 2-story building and do anything you want. If you want anything more than 2 stories, you have to put in affordable housing. You have to put in pet and bike facilities. You have to do this, you have to do that. There's all these amenities that the developer has to put in to do the real building that they want to do. And I anticipate that's going to be a very tall building there at the end of the day.
Thank you. Anne started off by thanking you for the protective bike lanes and all the trails. And she also has a 3-part question. She says that many seniors are still living in their single-family homes where they raise their families, and these homes often are paid off, so remaining in their current home makes financial sense. First point or question, they may have outgrown their homes and wish to downsize, but substitute housing choices are very expensive. It is also very expensive to sell a house with closing costs, moving costs, etc. How can we help seniors who may wish to sell and downsize as it will free up senior single-family homes.
And bless your heart, this is like the thing I am so passionate about, and I'm always a little nervous to bring it up because I don't want people to think I'm trying to chase them out of their homes. But you bring up an excellent point, and if you want to do a dog and pony show with me, I would love to employ you as my sidekick to ask that question at everything I go to, because you're exactly right. So half of Bellevue residential is single family homes with average of 4 bedrooms. 70% of single family homes are occupied by empty nesters. So these are homes that are walking distance to elementary school, have flat streets for riding, learning how to ride your bike, big yards. And we've got, empty nesters rattling around. And I consider myself one of those people. We just sold our house 2 years ago because, we had a 5-bedroom home. Our kids were independent. And, there's a lot of anxiety of living in a home that requires all this maintenance. You think about the structural, the yard, all the maintenance there. And most people don't want to be there in their single family home, but you're right, there's hardly any alternatives, and you basically lose your nest egg in downsizing. So we really need to, we're lucky to have the gardens at Town Square, but we need lots of options for people. And people who are younger, maybe 55, who don't want to be in a single family home, but are not ready to be at the gardens yet. We need to be able to create senior housing or active senior housing for individuals and for people who want to stay in their communities. So that's a conversation we're going to be having with the comp plan. We need to be looking at, do we allow cottage development in our single family neighborhoods? Do we allow townhouse development on the perimeter of our single family neighborhood? What are the opportunities for creating active senior communities in Bellevue and keeping them affordable? But it's part of a conversation I would love you all to be involved in.
Great, thank you. Part of her, look, you touched on her second question. I'm going to read the third question to see if there's anything you want to add to this, but how can we encourage builders to adopt universal designs which increase accessibility and benefit everyone?
Oh man, you're on my page. That's another thing. It doesn't cost any more to do universal design. Universal design is good for everybody. It's good for people with a stroller. It's good for people with groceries in their arms. It's good for somebody with a walker or a wheelchair. So yes, that to me is a no-brainer. And I think that it's catching on. So since I've been involved with the city, I was first on the Parks Board. And as a physical therapist, I really insisted that every park from there on be universal design. And so that's why now, like if you look at the downtown park, the old entrance is upstairs. And then there was one little entrance on the corner you can get to that was street level. Well, the next major entrance they put in off of 100th is all universal design. The entire Maidenbower Bay Park is universal design. Surrey Downs Park is universal design. So I think from here on out, every single park and public facility will be universal design. But that's something, we could put in Willburton. I love that idea, is to make sure that every development is sustainable and universal design. So yes, so get involved in the comp plan process, please.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. And if we didn't get a chance to read your question, then we will email those to Mayor Robinson after this presentation.
Carla, let's clarify what universal is. Universal design is, specifically, it's a 9 square foot pad in front of your front door. It's really initially designed for somebody in a wheelchair, so that you can turn your wheelchair around. It's all doorknobs being levers instead of knobs, or circular knobs. It's light switches being a little lower on the wall. and its counter heights not being too tall. So it would serve somebody who's standing as well as in a wheelchair. It's also having a bedroom and a bathroom on the ground floor and having a shower that you can roll into. So one bathroom that would accommodate a wheelchair. Obviously, the gardens at Town Square is universal design.
Great question, great answer and explanation there. This question, I recently was looking at the King County Accessible Travel Map, and it seems that there aren't as many choices for seniors on the east side to get around. What access or transportation options are open to Bellevue senior residents who cannot use regular buses or transportation?
That's always a big question, and I was just on a transportation meeting yesterday where we were talking about that. I think the county is looking at increasing funding for access, but you know, I think that as the autonomous vehicle trend advances, that's going to be the biggest solution for seniors, the ability to hail an autonomous vehicle and just get to your hair appointment or your doctor's appointment or out to lunch with your friends or whatever, or to a meeting. But until that time, it is hard. And I wish we could hire some of our high school students and give them a job of being our personal drivers. I would love to get a safe program like that going. You're lucky to have the car at Town Square and the bus system there, but it is really hard, especially for people trying to get to medical appointments.
Well, thank you. We are coming up on time. So I want to thank you, Mayor Robinson, for this incredibly informative presentation. And I think we can all, or I can speak for all of us, that we learned something new, and it's exciting what's happening in downtown Bellevue.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. It's been super fun. Remember, you can reach me, and I'm sure Carla will give you a little something with my email address on it. Please stay in touch with me, because I always appreciate hearing things from the residents of Bellevue.
Thank you so much. We are so pleased you joined us. And we will be emailing everyone an evaluation form, and we would love to hear your feedback on this presentation and any suggestions that you may have for future Zoom presentations. If you do have any questions about the gardens at Town Square, or would like a personalized tour, you can call us at 425-448-3615. And again, I'm Carla Clark, Regional Director of Sales with Era Living, hosting on behalf of the Gardens at Town Square. And this concludes today's presentation. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and we look forward to seeing you at future events. Thank you very much.